right, before we're able to do any kind of math in the kitchen, it's important that we first understand what the actual terms are that we're going to be using. There are lots of different measurement terms that we use within the kitchen that are really just used for measuring different kinds of ingredients and not used for much else. So while we may know feet and inches and how those things are related, we need to talk today about how teaspoons and tablespoons and cups and things of that nature are related. But before we get to how they're related, we have to understand that chefs are lazy. And while we have these terms of measurement written out, we do also have abbreviations that make it easier for us to be able to write these things down. It's important that we know what those abbreviations are so that whether we see the whole word written out or we see that individual abbreviation, we know what the recipe is telling us to use or what measurement we're looking at on a package for food or whatever it may be. So we're going to look at the terms that we're going to use today and look at the different ways that we can abbreviate those. The first one on your paper is gallon. And for gallon, we can abbreviate that as GAL. I'm actually going to use another color here. Okay, GAL. For one of our pictures we're going to use, we're also going to use an uppercase G to represent gallon, but usually we'll stick with GAL. For pint, we're going to use just simply PT, and we can add a period to the end of these abbreviations to signify that that is the end of the abbreviation. Quart is going to be very similar. We're going to say QT for quart. Our next one is cup, and even though that's a small word already, we are going to abbreviate that to just the letter C. For ounces, it's going to be OZ, which is a little weird for the English language, okay, but we use OZ. And then we can actually talk about a different abbreviation as well, which is FLOZ. And this is when we're talking about fluid ounces. These two things are very, very similar to each other, but when we're talking about something like flour or rice or pasta, we're going to use the ounces, OZ. And when we're talking about something like water or oil or apple juice, we're going to use the FLOZ. And so we'll kind of look at both of those terms of measurement during our lesson today, but OZ and FLOZ are the two different terms we could use for ounces and then for fluid ounces. The last two terms of measurement that we have are teaspoon and tablespoon, and both of these terms of measurement actually have two abbreviations that we can use for both of those words. So for tablespoon, we can write it out as TBSP, but we can also just simply write a capital letter T. Similarly, teaspoon is going to be a TSP, or we can simply use a lowercase t. Now, it's important that we know all three of those different ways, whether we write out the full word, we use TBSP or capital T, or the same thing for teaspoon, because we might see it written on a recipe in any of those three ways. So we have to know that a capital T means tablespoon or a lowercase t means teaspoon, so that we make sure we're measuring the proper amount of each ingredient. If we're not making those proper measurements or we confuse tablespoon or teaspoon, it could be the difference between your product turning out correctly and your product not turning out correctly. So these are all of the different terms that we're going to talk about and look at their relationship to each other and how we can write those for short, abbreviate those, again, because chefs are lazy and they don't want to write out the entire word.